Here we're looking at Jean Hay, who is probably the master of Moulin. Hay is spelled H-E-Y. This is a portrait of Margaret of Austria from about 1490. It's 13 inches by 9. This artist seems to have been trained in the workshop of Hugo van der Goes, but then pursued his career at the French court and became known as the greatest French follower of Jean Fouquet. This may have been one half of a devotional diptych. Margaret was the daughter of Maximilian I and was betrothed to King Charles VIII at 2 or 3. She was actually returned to her father at 13 when the king decided to pursue another more politically expedient marriage. She was married twice and then, as widow, became governor of the Habsburg Netherlands. Like Hugo, Hay was talented at portraying the innocent world of children. This charming portrait can be compared to Hugo's Marguerite Portinari and the Portinari altarpiece, which we looked at before. In both of these we see freshness and warmth combined with seriousness and piety and propriety. At this age, Margaret was nominally betrothed to Charles VIII and therefore Queen of France. The hapless circumstances surrounding her childhood in France seem reflected in her somewhat downcast eyes. She is dressed in red velvet and wears an elegant headpiece. She fondles a rosary with beads of pearl. From her necklace hangs a stunning lily pendant of gold ornamented with rubies and pearls. Beyond the window, a softly undulating countryside with the chateau is mirrored in a lake. It's bathed in warm summer sunlight. The C's and M's embroidered on her collar signal her betrothal to Charles VIII. She's about 10 years old in this painting. Here we see Michael Pacher's St. Wolfgang altarpiece from about 1481. It's 40 feet high. The artist was very well known for his polychrome wood carvings and altarpieces, and he was based in Brumeck, B-R-U-M-E-C-K, which is now in the Italian Alps. It was commissioned by Benedict Eck, E-C-K, Abbot of Mondsee, for the Pilgrimage Church of St. Wolfgang, a grand high altarpiece still in its original church setting. The artist in his workshop worked on it for about a 10-year period. The cost and the materials were specified in the contract. When opened, the 4 flanking shutter panels reveal the life of the Virgin. In the centerpiece, the wood carvings in gilt of a vision in paradise is shown where Christ crowns his mother as Queen of Heaven, flanked by images of local saints. The soft wood is noted for its deep undercutting. The detailed cutting and polychromy with gold leaf gives light and movement throughout the naturalistic details. There's a theatrical effect of sculptures and towering figures. We see Saints Wolfgang and Benedict, the large end figures, transitioning us between the sculptures and the architecture of the frame. We notice the scooped out arcs and elegant angular pockets in the work, which create significant highlights. Here we see the mid-15th century Buxheim St. Christopher. It's a hand-colored woodcut. The Latin text reads, "Whenever you look at the face of St. Christopher, you will not die a terrible death that day." End of quote. It was found in the Carthusian monastery of Buxheim in southern Germany, and it happened to be fastened to the inside of the cover of a manuscript. St. Christopher, patron saint of travelers and protectors from the plague, carries the Christ child across the river. He is actually witnessed by a monk holding out a light to guide him to the monastery door, but he seems to be ignored by the millers on the opposite bank who are working rigorously. Both the cutting of the block and the quality of the printing in this particular work are high for woodcuts of the time. And we can see that the lines vary in width to strengthen the major forms. Uh, in fact, higher ridges, thicker ridges, creating substantial forms. Delicate lines are used for the inner modeling, particularly facial features. Um, these are ridges not so high, or more delicate ridges. And short parallel lines to indicate the shadows, particularly on the insides of draperies. Recent studies have determined that the date refers to some event, and so the print is now dated to that particular time. Here we are looking at Martin Schongauer, Demons Tormenting St. Anthony, a good example of an early engraving from about 1490. Engraving may have originated with goldsmiths and armorers who recorded their work by rubbing lampblack into the engraved lines and pressing paper over the plate. And in fact, an example of this is Schongauer, who probably learned engraving from his very skilled father, who's a goldsmith, and he excelled in both drawing and also the difficult technique of shading from deep blacks to faint grays. So here we see the temptation of Anthony as a physical assault rather than as some subtle inducement. We see these demonic figures, wild poses, lifting Anthony up off the ground to terrify him, torment him in midair. The engraver manages in his art to intensify the horror of the time by condensing the action into a swirling vortex of figures, beating, scratching, poking, tugging, and no doubt shrieking, who remain impervious to all, perhaps because of his power to focus inwardly on his meditations. So in this particular case, we see the engraved plate. We can see scratchings, multiple acid baths to produce lines of varying depth and varying delicacy to create this tension over the surface, and literally create areas of gray and tonal areas of white, gray, and black. Here we see Margaret, daughter of Maximilian I, who was betrothed to the King Charles VII at the age of 2 or 3. She was actually returned to her father at 13 when the king decided to pursue another. When the king decided